So,
Mr. Speaker.
members of the gallery, maintain your discipline, please.
Hello. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to concur with my colleague from MESOP to say Happy Garifuna to all Belizeans in reality. Happy Garifuna Day. And especially my brothers that represent the Garifuna people from down south. Congratulations and have a happy Garifuna Day tomorrow. One thing I'd like to remind the minister from MESOP, Mr. Speaker, we tend to highlight what PUP have not done, but he needs to be reminded that he has been in government and representing the people of the MESOP from 1979, Mr. Speaker, from 1979. And that's something positive, meaning it takes a lot to be in there for so long. Mr. Speaker, if you may allow me to refer to my notes. Mr.
Yes.
Speaker, our objection to this loan motion is based on various factors of national importance. Mr. Speaker, the insistence of the Prime Minister and his UD cabinet in bringing this motion to this Honorable House 3 years after the fact is a complete and total violation of Section 7.2 of the Finance and Audit Reform Act of 2005. Mr. Speaker, it is an abuse and total disregard for the rule of law. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, the clerk just presented us some beautiful reading on rule of law, to be specific. And a total disrespect to this House and to the people of Belize. Mr. Speaker, Section 2 of the reform states that a loan of or above $10 million shall be validly entered into pursuant to a resolution of the National Assembly authorizing government to borrow the money. It is clear, Mr. Speaker. It says you get permission before you borrow the money. It doesn't say borrow the money, spend the money, and then when the people of Belize pressure you, then maybe you decide to bring it to the House to ask for permission. It is quite clear, Mr. Speaker. Far from complying with the Act, the loan motion seeks to ratify, confirm a wrongful borrowing and spending by this government of the people's money since September 2012. The manner in which the borrowing and the spending has been conducted is contrary to the intent of the Act and has defeated and frustrated the intent of the Act, which was to provide for better provisions regulating public revenue and expenditure. You see, Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister believes and acts as if the legislature of the country and the laws by which we must abide is not applicable to him. Mr. Speaker, but he, more than anybody else, has studied the law. He has practiced the law. And more than anybody else, he has benefited from the law, Mr. Speaker. And so, this motion, which he himself wrote, is not worth the paper on which it is written on. Mr. Speaker, it is wrong, it is poorly written, it is poorly conceived, it is useless, and it is unlawful. In reality, Mr. Speaker, it is garbage on paper. Mr. Speaker, everything we do here in this House as elected representatives should be done under the umbrella of good governance. In order to achieve good governance, Mr. Speaker, the government should abide by 3 basic things. 1, the rule of law, as the clerk has shown us in his manuscript. 2, the government should be accountable to the people. And 3, the government should be transparent. In reality, Mr. Speaker, good governance benefits economic growth by lessening inequality and increasing opportunity. Mr. Speaker, the rule of law is an unqualified good with many benefits. It proposes that government should have restraints. Government should not possess absolute powers. There should be legal controls over the government's activities. No one, especially and including government officials, should be above the law. The second factor, Mr. Speaker, accountability of how the people's money is spent. We, on this side of the House, are not against development. And I'll repeat, we, on this side of the House, we are not against development. You want to hear it now, Creole? We're not against development, my boy. Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, the People's United Party has a track record of being pro-development. It is just that we do not go about amassing the people's money, amassing people outside, paying $2.2 million so that they can grandstand with their people on the other side. Maybe Mayor Zenaida Moya was right, Mr. Speaker. They lack the fortitude and other things to be able to debate us here without having the people there. What are they afraid of? Mr. Speaker, we have built roads that take us from the Rio on to the Star Stone. We have built communities. We have built villages. In fact, this great city of Belmopan, don't forget it, was built by the PUP. We have built schools that our children go to, Mr. Speaker, and we can go on and on. We are, Mr. Speaker, for meaningful development. The PUP entered into the original Petrocaribe Energy Cooperation Agreement, Mr. Speaker, so we understand and value the benefits of the program to our economy and our country. But that support, as the party leader has been saying over and over, is not unconditional. When $230 million is borrowed in the name of the people and there is no proper authorization for that borrowing, Mr. Speaker, and no proper accounting for the monies, Mr. Speaker, it forces us to stand up for the rights of the Belizean people. Mr. Speaker, you see, we are not playing games here. We have a responsibility as the loyal opposition. And I, more than anybody, has a responsibility as the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. And by speaking of the Public Accounts Committee, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister lied to us this morning when he said that the Public Accounts Committee met for the Petrocaribe motion. The Public Accounts Committee has not met, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Rodwell Ferguson and I were not informed by the clerk, Mr. Speaker. So even if a meeting was done, it was done unlawfully and without the authorization, because there is only one chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, and that is the Honorable Julius Espat. And there is only one person that can change him, and that is the Honorable Francis Fonseca as the leader of opposition. Check your standing orders, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Speaker, as chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, I have a duty and obligation to pursue every possible option to ensure, and I don't expect the clerk to go printing up an invitation to no PAC meeting that was not held. So please, Mr. Clerk, I'll hold you to that. The obligation of the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee is to ensure full accountability of the people's money, regardless of the past history of the ineffectiveness of the Public Accounts Committee, Mr. Speaker. We know that the Public Accounts Committee has not functioned from 1981 when we became government. We know that it has to function in order for this country to move forward, Mr. Speaker, because our country deserves accountability. Our actions here, Mr. Speaker, in this honorable House and in the courts has the potential to ensure that this government and any future government, including the one that will be formed by the People's United Party, cannot simply ignore the rules that are in place. Our party leader has been clear with that. And that's why when the Prime Minister, they tried to throw Joseph Wait under the bus, it doesn't matter if he is family to George Price, Mr. Speaker. If he breaks the law, he will pay the price. Mr. Speaker, this government and any future government, we have to demand, the people have to demand accountability Because, Mr. Speaker, if we don't demand it, they will believe that they can continue spending the people's money as if it is their money. And that is the problem they have over there, Mr. Speaker. They believe that the people's money is their money. And that is a fundamental concept that needs to be erased from their minds, and it needs to be erased from anybody on this side that has that same mentality, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, government accountability means that public officials, I will repeat, public officials, elected or unelected, have an obligation to explain their decisions and actions to the citizens. Government accountability is achieved through the use of a variety of mechanisms. One is political, as how we are doing here. Two is legal, as the direction in which we are going. And the other one is administrative. These are designed to prevent corruption and ensure that public officials remain answerable and accessible to the people that they serve. Mr. Speaker, in the absence of such mechanisms, corruption thrives, and we have to stop it. Mr. Speaker, the people of Belize demand to know details of the money that is being spent from the Petrocaribe funds, the project descriptions in detail, project locations, Mr. Speaker, the people that are benefiting from these projects, evaluation, Mr. Speaker, of how those projects are driving this economy, priority list of projects when it pertains to bettering the quality of life of our citizens, benefits to communities and the surrounding environment. And I mean communities, I don't only mean Belize City. Proof that our money is being spent equitably, Mr. Speaker. Equitable spending, Honorable Boots. Equitable spending. If the government, Mr. Speaker, really wanted equitable distribution of the Petrocaribe funds, they could have reduced the dollar bill that we pay $12 a gallon for gasoline to $7, and everybody would benefit, Mr. Speaker. The farmer would benefit, the merchant would benefit, the lady working at home would benefit, the public servants would benefit, the teachers would benefit, every single person would benefit, Mr. Speaker, and there would be no need for accounting. There would be no need, because you could not touch the money. That is one way, Mr. Speaker, of having equitable distribution of the funds, if they were serious about it, and if they didn't want to use that money for political spending. Prove to us that it is not being spent politically. You see, Mr. Speaker, why is it that they have one rent-a-crowd out here? Why is it that they spend millions of dollars on ads? In fact, you get tired. You watch the TV, you see so much ad, it is absurd. Millions of dollars, Mr. Speaker. When a simple person like myself is just asking a question, show us accountability, please. But you know why they have to do that? Circus, as the party leader said. I'm not sure that the party leader, Honorable John Briceño. You know why? It is when you fear the truth, Mr. Speaker. They say, you know why I hear the truth? Because the truth hurts. And we are asking the question because we were elected, and we have a responsibility to make sure that they show us the money. Show us the money. Mr. Speaker, we also demand disclosure of the name of the consultants and the contractors that are benefiting from these projects. My information is that party leader said 5. I think maybe we could stretch it to about 7 contractors that are benefiting. Mr. Speaker, show us a detail of the bidding process. It is nothing out of this world, Honorable Member from, where are you from? San Pedro? All right, Belize Rural South, my apologies. There's nothing wrong with asking about the bidding process. But we go further. We don't only want to know about the bidding process. We want to know who are the decision makers of that bidding process. How is it that Emer Hernandez gets everything when he even doesn't build it? That's a question that any Belizean would want to know. Why? Why is it that, and we are doing an appraisal right now in Belmopan Market, Mr. Speaker. We are doing a physical appraisal to make sure that the Belmopan people realize that what is being spent out there does not have value for money. And that's just one of the projects. You not talk, my boy, because the project that they did in San Pedro, under bill, with the Petrocaribe funds, was a port that the boats could... I'm giving you an example, Mr. Speaker. A beautiful project. It looks like a beautiful project, but yet the boats can't use it, Mr. Speaker, because the water is too shallow. So they can't even use the project. And then they try to dredge it, Mr. Speaker, and they can't dredge it because it got rock. And that is what we are saying. Value for money. You're creating white elephants just to be able to spend the money. And on top of that, they create bill, just that we can't find out exactly how the money is being spent. It's all a devious, devilish ploy to make sure that the people of Belize can't find the trace of the money. But we will find it out. Specify the value of each project. Mr. Speaker, we want them to define the scope of works. They say they spend 10 million there, and they spend 20 million here. Can I continue, Mr. Speaker? And they spend 20 million here, and they spend $1 million over there. That's just words. We want the detail of the $10 million. Who is the contractor? Where did that 10 million go? Was it value for money? Did they complete it? Do you have the bidding process? Did you see the competitive bids? Why are the names appearing over and over and over? $228 million with 7 contractors getting it. And then the chance of the poor young boy then in the drain. And then even the squeeze there. Then they want to buy proper clothing for them attach and work. Then they want to buy a helmet and shoes. And that is what we need to get to the bottom of. Mr. Speaker, we demand them to show us all the detailed documents. Show us which projects benefit us in education. Well, you spend so much money in education and yet they can't pay the teachers that St. Matthew, Mr. Speaker. Then, where's the money on health and our basic infrastructure in the villages? The Prime Minister should be ashamed, Mr. Speaker. I wrote him the first time I was in Parliament, the first year, requesting for him to provide water to our villagers in Armenia. You know where the man write me back, Mr. Speaker? Sorry, boss, I don't got no money. When it float with $238 million, Mr. Speaker, and Armenia with 2,000 people with a budget of $70,000, and he refuses to install a water system for those poor villagers, a village that is between 10 to 12 minutes from the capital city of Belmopan. What a shame! What a shame! What a shame! Show us the projects in the areas that bring back economic development, Mr. Speaker. Show us where you have invested in the farmers. Mr. Speaker, the farmers are going up against a big boy, ASR. They have 28, well, right now about 400 million. They could have purchased that factory for and on behalf of the people if they really want to help this economy. What happened to the guys of FECTAB that are fighting for their livelihood? When you as Minister of Tourism only think about the big boys, the ones that are out there, how about our local people? Mr. Speaker, in Cayo South, we have some of the best destinations for cave tubing. We have the most sacred cave in the world, the ATM caves, and yet the people of Cayo South do not benefit from those sites. That is what you need to do. Bring the money and spend it where you can drive this economy and help the people that need help. Pero en realidad, Mr. Speaker, lo que tenemos que parar es que el ratón rojo deje de comer el queso que es el nuestro. Que dejen de comer el queso. Mr. Speaker, we call on the government of Venezuela
For the
to
record, I have
send...
to ask you to translate it, member.
You want to translate it, Mr. Speaker?
I don't want to. The House
I would love to translate it if you want me to.
Not me, you want. This one.
All right.
He translated it.
My translation is, we need to have the red rat stop the eat with cheese. You asked for it, Mr. Speaker. It wasn't me. Mr.
I knew what you said the first time.
I didn't know you understood Spanish, sir.
Very well, better than you.
All right.
I'm saying, for the record and the standing orders you signed up for.
As you see, I follow your instructions, sir. Mr. Speaker, we call on the Venezuelan government to send a forensic auditor so as to evaluate how the money is being spent. The Venezuelan government and the people of Venezuela need to know that that money is not being misused. They need to make sure, because you see, Mr. Speaker, the money that the Venezuelan, and it is the Venezuelan people that is helping us. So it is their responsibility to their people to justify to their people that the money is not being stolen. But in fact, Mr. Speaker, we call on all governments, including the U.S., and all lending institutions that facilitate us with aid or grants or loans. Send your auditors to Belize to make sure that your money is being accounted for. That is a simple request. It is not a political request. Anybody that gives you or lends you money has that right. This, Mr. Speaker, because the Prime Minister and his government has lost all credibility in the way they are spending our money. You see, Mr. Speaker, it is a shame. This act totally exposes the Prime Minister's lack of credibility, that of his government, and will establish once and for all his legacy as Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, what a legacy that will be. The third factor, Mr. Speaker, transparency in how this government manages people's money. Mr. Speaker, transparency potentially changes the way governments operate. Transparency potentially changes the relationships between people and government officials. Transparency, Mr. Speaker, enables groups that otherwise would not be able to participate in governance. That is why, Mr. Speaker, when we were doing the motion for the Public Accounts Committee, we were inviting the social partners. It is precisely for that reason, so that could have transparency, Mr. Speaker, because the people of Belize do not believe in them anymore. Mr. Speaker, I was going to call him President Hugo Chavez, but the Prime Minister and everybody seems to call him Comandante. So I will follow with that. Mr. Speaker, in 2005, El Comandante Hugo Chavez said at a meeting with heads of states of the Caribbean, Latin America, in Puerto La Cruz, Venezuela, and I quote, "Social projects fostered by the Petrocaribe Agreement should empower all people in these populations, just not only UDP, should empower all people in these populations to overcome poverty, ensuring availability and access to health for all people, education and microfinancing of cooperatives and small and medium-sized people for all people. We reassert," he said, "that the Petrocaribe Agreement is intended to change Latin America and Caribbean societies by making them fairer." Well, ask the businessmen out there, if there's only 5 contractors getting all the work, is it fairer? That's the question we need to ask. He also said it is intended to make us more cultured. I don't see how that's happening either, Mr. Speaker. It is intended for participative and supportive, and because of that, it is regarded as a comprehensive process which promotes eradication of poverty and encourages quality of life and effective involvement in the peoples in shaping their own destiny. Mr. Speaker, that is what we are saying. If the money is properly used and it is used for economic development, then the people that are making money right now on the streets, when that street stops, what have they learned to be able to continue providing for their families? Why are we not educating them so that they can become from helpers in the drain to probably a mason, to probably a foreman, to probably even an architect or an engineer? Why are we not spending time for them to move forward and better the quality of their life, Mr. Speaker? You cannot keep them doing breaking of the stone, as my honorable member always says, and expect that they will continue providing for their families, Mr. Speaker. There is another problem with the Petrocaribe funds, Mr. Speaker. It is that this government has behaved as a drug addict when it comes to the money. They have not even thought of how to drive this economy separate from the Petrocaribe fund. You know, here they say, roll it, roll it, roll it. It's like they're mad with this money coming in, and they have no idea what it takes to drive this Belizean economy for all our people. And that is something, and people say, well, don't worry about it, Basket, I don't have to solve it when I get in. That is what they say out there. That is what they say. Mr. Speaker, this is a serious debate. It's not about comic relief, so make we left that one side, Boots. Gonna call us out and find out if you can't win. Come, come, come. The same way I throw you out a Roaring Creek, when I throw you out again, boss. Mr. Speaker, one has to wonder why would a prime minister spend millions of dollars on ads, millions of dollars on amassing a paid political fanatical crowd, personally, and I know of this, personally calling business owners to stop financing political people from the PUP side, personally calling his contractors so that he sends out the people to the stuff today. I know, because in Cayo South we had about 10 people that wanted to come. They called me and they said, boss, Emer Hernandez said, if I'm not going to fire me, I tell them, well, make it fire because we are carrying a coat too. Mr. Speaker, the message that they are spreading is a message of hate, and it is a lie. It is a lie, it is a lie, it is a lie. We are not against development. The sole purpose of amassing that crowd is so that they can stand up. They feel like men today, you see, because they're afraid of us, you see, because they cannot stand up alone. Zenaida was right, Mr. Speaker. She was right. Mr. Speaker, in reality, the projects that they are embarking on does not follow the spirit of the Petrocaribe original agreement as detailed out by our past Prime Minister, the Honorable Said Musa. Mr. Speaker, when the line between government and the UDP's treasurer or treasury becomes blurred, as the party leader said before, we in Belize and we on this side have a problem with that. Let them show us how they never use the Petrocaribe money out there. Prove it to us. I know Barron never take it out of his pocket. Prove it to us how the 2.2 million was spent. Prove it to us how you get the $200 where you pay everybody out there. And the one that where you get 25, they want a change, boss. They want the 175 where you got for them. When contracts given out under the Petrocaribe program are given to a selected few of the UDP, Mr. Speaker, the Belizean people do not get value for money. And we, as the party leader said, we have a problem with that, Mr. Speaker. I think what they're supposed to do, Mr. Speaker, is do an additional contract to Mr. Woods so that he does an extension at Colby. Because all of them are in up there. All of them. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister really and truly wants us to believe that he is above it all, you see, and that everything he does smells like roses. But in reality, Mr. Speaker, he is the biggest deceiver that this country has ever seen. He came to government promising the unions, the chamber, the churches, and the people of Belize that he would bring accountability and that he would do things differently from the past administration. What he has done, Mr. Speaker, is betray the social partners. He has hoodwinked the unions, and in reality, he has bamboozled the people of Belize. He has betrayed the people that once believed in him.
One second, member. Yes, Mr.
Mr. Speaker, he read.
No, he has permission.
Huh?
He has permission.
But Mr. Speaker.
Hey.
Oh, he has the permission.
Yes,
you
I
gave
gave it
all
to
right.
him, yes.
Because they got so much more, they must know for stand up and get up and know for debate and so. Not for read off a paper like parrot.
Proceed, member. Proceed. Proceed.
You see, Mr.
President.
Speaker,
Proceed with your
when you
present-
have something that has
moving in your
value,
favor.
at times it's good to refer to your notes. When you are a comic relief yourself, you don't need notes. Mr. Speaker, in his budget speech, the Prime Minister compared himself to Harry Houdini. And that was an incredible thing for a Prime Minister to do, Mr. Speaker. Because Harry Houdini participated in the dark arts of deception. So when a Prime Minister compares himself to a Harry Houdini, he is justifying to us. Thank you very much, Mr. Finnegan. When a Prime Minister compares himself to the dark night of deception, I hope it's not that company that's in France. What's it called? Dark Night too. In the dark night of deception, Mr. Speaker, that is when we start realizing what the problem is. You see, Mr. Speaker, he has deceived every single person that has put their faith in him, Mr. Speaker. But even the great Dark Knight member from Mesop, he too fell and was caught into his own stunt. Read the history. And I have to read this part, Ms. Minister from Mesop. So in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, and this I hope doesn't bore people, but this is the essence of our objection. Mr. Speaker, the formal grounds of our objection to the motion are: a revised loan agreement between the government of Belize and Alba Petrocaribe Belize Energy Limited was apparently entered into or about September 2012 without any authority from the National Assembly and without any disclosure whatsoever to this House of Representatives. All the members of the House have therefore not even had sight of the loan agreement. Ms. Dolores, have you seen the loan agreement? Mike, have you seen the loan agreement? Party leader, have you seen the loan agreement? Since entering loan agreement, funds have been drawn by the government under the agreement and apparently expended under the instructions of the Prime Minister himself and his cabinet for and on behalf of the government and the people of Belize without authority of this honorable House, Mr. Speaker. And that totals, when the motion was placed, of US $114,307,356 up to the 2nd of October. When a loan motion was put before the House of Representatives to confirm and validate the loan agreement pursuant to provisions of Section 7.2 of the Finance and Audit Reform Act. The motion does not seek approval of any expenditure of the proceeds of the loans derived from the agreement, whether retroactively or otherwise. So the money has been spent already, and they're still, in this motion, not asking permission to spend it. And that is where they don't understand. You see, Mr. Speaker, they could go up there and beat up their chest and rail up and do everything when they want, but they have not followed the rule of law. See the book right here? Rule of law, Mr. Speaker. It is simple. The Lee man on the street, when they ride up, stop without one bell, he go to jail right away, Mr. Speaker. The young boy out of Roaring Creek, when they grab them in a least stick of weed, they lock them up right away, Mr. Speaker. But they one year could spend $228 million unlawfully, and they feel like they are get to Mr. Speaker, just like Kenna. They feel like they are get to Mr. Speaker. They might get away right now, Mr. Speaker, but they won't get away. Section 7.2 of the Finance and Audit Reform Act provides that the House may, by resolution, authorize borrowing by the government from banks, financial institutions, or borrowing from capital markets in Belize or abroad. Alba Petrocaribe Belize Energy Limited is a local private company. It doesn't matter how they spin it. They say it's an agreement between this government and that government, therefore it is a public company. That's nonsense, Mr. Speaker. You go into the registry and look, Alba Petrocaribe Belize Energy. It is a private company under the laws of Belize. And that company is neither a bank nor a financial institution, and no debt instrument are being offered on any capital market anywhere pursuant to the loan agreement, so that authority for such borrowing cannot and I will repeat, cannot be lawfully had pursuant to Section 7.2 of the Finance and Audit Reform Act. We have laws, Mr. Speaker. We have to follow the rule of law. And the Prime Minister, unlike me, I don't know, attorney, he no got no excuse. He even try to rail up with the judge so that you can't even carry a case in front of the judge. That's the level that he reaches. So he no got no excuse. Section 114, and this goes further, Mr. Speaker, because now we are talking about our Constitution. Section 114.2 of the Belize Constitution provides that no monies shall be withdrawn from the Consolidated Revenue Fund except to meet expenditure that is charged upon the fund by the Constitution or any other law enacted by the National Assembly or by an appropriate law or a law made pursuant to Section 116 of the Constitution. And this is where I was looking at another thing that they are presenting. What's it called? The Supplementary Appropriations Bill. Member from Rural Central. That again, Mr. Speaker, they are doing it unlawfully, and I will explain. And Mr. Joseph Waite is wrong in what he said in the television, and I'll explain why he is wrong. Mr. Speaker, a supplementary bill is supposed to be like a contingency. Under the laws of Belize, you're finished, Mr. Man? When you're finished, tell me not so I could continue.
Proceed, man. Continue.
Mr. Speaker, the supplementary appropriation bill is not designed for you to come to this house 2 years after the fact and say, boss, I spent $40 million, I need approval for it. The law says, under the same Reform and Finance Act, that the maximum that you can deal with it in a normal situation is $500,000. You can come if it is an emergency. You know what the emergency? The emergency no near Petrocaribe, where emergency mean hurricane or earthquake or Ebola. So you see, Mr. Speaker, that like when you pick the lie, and you create one next slide for cover up on next slide for cover up on next slide. Well, that's the way they catch them. So now even the big bad Dean Barrow and get out of this lie because they lie for lie for lie. Mr. Speaker, any repayment of the loans by the government of Belize pursuant to the loan agreement would constitute expenditures from the Consolidated Revenue Fund that are not charged upon the fund by the Constitution or any other law enacted by the National Assembly, whether pursuant to Section 116 of the Constitution or otherwise. Mr. Speaker, this one is where the Venezuelan government has to be careful with. Any provisions of the loan agreement providing for any such payments are accordingly unenforceable against the government and the people of Belize unless and until an appropriate law is enacted by the National Assembly authorizing such payments. They have not even had the decency of coming to this house to enact a law to give them permission to pay back Venezuela. That is how far they are, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, further, Mr. Speaker, Section 10 of the Finance and Audit Reform Act 2005 establishes a fund separate from the Consolidated Fund. It is called the Development Fund, Mr. Speaker. They don't know where that, because they haven't even conceived it. They haven't even used it. They haven't even thought of it. You know why? Because this Prime Minister feels that he's above it all. He believes that everybody in this country, 350 people, stupid, and he's only the smartest man. Well, no, you ain't get catch. And the development and provides that the development fund shall consist of grants or loans to government for development purposes by any other government body or person, as well as monies received from the proceeds of loans raised for development purposes such as the Petrocaribe funds. I know how to talk gibberish to you, Boots, but just hold it only a while. The capital projects identified in the 2014 Boots, wipe your nose. The capital projects identified in the 2014 loan motion, including the construction and rehabilitation of street and road infrastructure countrywide, the construction of sporting facilities, as well as social and community assistance to the poor and marginalized in accordance with government, social, and economic programs for which the loans were apparently secured, all constitute development purposes in accordance with the provisions of the Finance and Audit Reform Act 2005. Therefore, and so, Mr. Speaker, that proceeds of the loan ought properly to be comprised within the development fund. No estimates of revenues and expenditures for the development fund has ever been submitted to or approved by the National Assembly, as required by the Finance and Audit Reform Act of 2005. Notwithstanding the absence of authority from the National Assembly, the proceeds of the loans have and continue to be expended purportedly under authority of the hand of the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, with concurrence of his cabinet. All I want to know, read and write. And on behalf of the Attorney General of Belize. It is of fundamental public importance that public funds are secured and expended in a transparent and accountable manner in accordance with the law. If it was pool tables, Mr. Speaker, and you want to sell it under your pool table, Mr. Speaker, you have all the right to sell it. You want to give it away, that is your right. But when it is the people's money, Mr. Speaker, you have no such right. You need to ask for permission, boss. Mr. Speaker, in concluding this debate, you say 2 times to remember? I don't say follow your boss. My hero, you said it 2, I will say it 2. Mr. Speaker, I think a lot of these gentlemen on the other side are caught in a situation that they simply just don't understand. But the law, and maybe the past Prime Minister can tell me on this, I don't think ignorance is a defense.
Proceed, Member, proceed.
In every organization, Mr. Speaker, you have your clones, and there they are. That's the problem. That's the problem, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, the People's United Party, under the leadership of Francis Fonseca, is serious about good governance. The People's United Party will make sure that we follow the rule of law. The people of Belize will force us to make sure that we are accountable. The people of Cayo South demand transparency. Mr. Speaker, it is the only way that our country will develop further. Mr. Speaker, because you got a lot of big junk crowds that are not Belizeans that are circling our economy, and we have to make sure that we protect our Belizean interests first. If the money is loaned to us, if the money is given to us, it is for us, all of us, my brother. 350,000 people, all of us. I'm looking at your supplementary right now, Mr. Speaker, and it's a joke, nearly $1 million for Mother's Day giveaway, where they have only spent it on 17 constituencies, Mr. Speaker. That by itself is unlawful, Mr. Speaker, because the Constitution says that you cannot spend money, just like you cannot give away land politically. And that is the problem. You cannot spend or give away the Belizean money for political purposes. And if you are only giving 17 representatives and forgetting 14, that is political spending, Mr. Speaker. I mean, I wish the Honorable a Merry Christmas, but we're not there yet. I wish them a happy Garifuna Day. I wish the Belizean people a happy Garifuna Day. I wish the people of Cayo South all the best, Mr. Speaker. And more than anything else, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to have a sensible debate without much interruption. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.